All right, I guess we have enough time. But let's look at this story from the aspect of the lens of water. Now we're talking the heart. Now we're talking the lighthouse images of the Three of Swords, right? The phantom swords. Because if you only have one sword of truth that you need as a lightning rod conductor, and the rest are illusions, I'm left with the traditional image of the Three of Swords in the upright, three swords piercing into the heart. It's like it's trying to stab water. Okay, you're not really going to get anywhere trying to stab water. Okay, the heart's primary role is the kind of emotional bonding, the element of water, I would say here, at least in the context of how we're defining it in this series. We talked about the maestro orchestrating the symphony through the emotion, right? So now we're dealing with the emotion, right? The tool to manipulate emotion, the musical box, the voice box, music, instruments, and the heart, putting your heart into it, using the emotion, right? The water. Emotion is water. And so now that you're docked home is where the heart is, back to self, you take one sword as your sword of truth. You have options of what you would deem truth, your version of truth. And maybe we can say it's the only version to the extent that it's aligned with the highest of highs and the divine, and is on the up and up. You're left with these three that are now three swords. Three swords is the three swords piercing into the heart. Piercing into the heart is trying to pierce through water. And those that are heartbroken need to take the swords out of their heart so that they can get into the present moment and expand their heart space, turn their heart light on, the lighthouse of the heart on. And they need to cast their net into the right hemisphere, which is where God is, the creative, intuitive self. The problem with the sword is that it can be too left-minded oriented if it's not used as a lightning rod to conduct the intuitive highest of highs. Then it becomes this removed, cerebral, assassin, cold, callous, brass tacks, analytical, math, science without the divine, which doesn't work because both feed into each other, whether we're talking the right and the left hemisphere or the secular and the spiritual, the mathematical and the spiritual. Science, math, logic feeds into the divine, intuitive, and vice versa. Now, we might be living in a world currently where that's trying to be presented as removed from each other, 4 on the clock. And that's not possible. Only the illusion of it is possible. And the illusion is, well, break up illusion. If we're just playing with words, you don't really need the Latin translation, but illusion is the ill you see, based on illusion, based on the ill you see. And so the ill is out there because it can be casted as a spell, as an illusion, by the devil or whomever, but likely maybe the devil, so that you can integrate it into yourself, into your soul, and remove your connection from the divine, true north. But if you see it for what it is, illusion, then you can't be perverted by it. So we're talking about trying to stab water at this point, which is very interesting, and you could buy into that illusion that the swords could stab water or hurt water. It's a good illusion, right? It's a good trick. But you've gotten what you've gotten from the situation. And again, we spoke to the sadness of the king, right? Now, coming from the Three of Swords, sadness is typically, as a result, the illusion of sadness, mourning, loss, is we believe what we are seeing now to be the whole picture. But it has nothing to say of an afterlife or what's to come, even in this lifetime. And even to the point of hard-coded in our nature, in our human nature, right? Our traditions, our rituals. Some traditions and rituals have death as a celebration. So maybe that means one bloodline needed to construct an afterlife, needed to write that understanding of an afterlife. Right? Elephants mourn, they cry, but do they have the capacity to create God? And Nietzsche said, if God didn't exist, surely we would have created him. I believe that was Nietzsche. And so being human, the king goes off of what he sees and he mourns, but I have a feeling that that doesn't last because he understands he has the ability to write a happy ending. And maybe even a reunion here. As he reunites with himself or with the divine. See the Six of Wands come out here. There's that ethical code. So we're looking through the lens of the water, the emotion, the substrate of what we're kind of floating on in this storyline. Ships at sea, monsters at sea. The magnetic aspect of water, of emotion, as we know it through manifestation. Monstar, moan, Can mean moon or one, mano, the moon star. Mon A, Mon E. And I'm thought of the moon as the electric and the sun, or excuse me, the moon is the magnetic and the sun is the electric, right? Okay, anything else here for the water component, right? Water, we know the water is emotion, we know the water is magnetic. Now the emotion is going to be we're either working with the term of vibration or radiation, right? I believe we're working with the term of vibration because radiation would be the sun, right? The sun radiates. But we vibrate, right? In our emotions, in our frequency. And there has to be a discharge of that wave, of that vibration, of that frequency. Just like when there's a storm, the electromagnetic static, or what have you, gathers in the clouds and needs to discharge. And that's what the lightning bolt is. Similarly, when we hold that emotional vibration, there has to be a discharge of that. And I contest that, or I would argue that that's when the manifestation appears in the 3D. Because you've held that vibration for long enough that you finally achieved and accomplished that. And so hence why you want to hold a positive emotion. I'm also getting a rising tide raises all the ships as well. High tide raises all the ships. Again, more of the up is good, down is bad. And I'm sure there are some seafaring experts that know why a high tide is good, or it could just be metaphorical for success, but maybe that means more fish to catch, more, better fishing conditions, what have you. Anything else about the water component here? We really didn't draw that many cards here for it. You got water here though, the 3 of Cup in the upright. This is success, celebration, romance. Okay. The 3 is half of the 8. The 8 is the butterfly, the resurrection. We're in a number 8 here. Okay, the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. Feels as though the 3 needs the other half, which is a 6. The 6 is the soulmate. It's also the balance. So this king is at a place possibly where he could see above the emotion, the negative expression of the emotion. Remember, he's high-minded, so he's on the up and up, he or she. But this is finding the romance in the journey, right? This is how you can tap into it no matter where you're at in life. Or the celebration of it, the joy of it. The 3 reminds me of the Trinity. Okay, all of these elements are always with us. I always say it, right? The divine masculine, the divine feminine, the infant child, vulnerable self. That triad creates the container for the divine, the Holy Spirit, God, what you would want to call. 551 on the clock. And this is empowering, 1555 on the clock, because now the 2 of Wands says, okay, well then, now that I know the ways of all of this kind of seafaring language, in this kind of energetic language, or this energetic esoteric language that we're speaking to, I could go anywhere and I could see myself doing anything and enjoying anything. 1616 on the clock. 2 of Wands in the upright. The traditional image of the man has the whole world in his hand. Okay, that's also a reference to God. God has the whole world in his hand. And this man that knows himself to be not separate from God. Another download that's been coming through is the belief in God is the same as the belief in self. I believe that I could do this. You know, when the self realizes that it's not separate from God, right? Both are similar in the conceptual of it, right? God as a concept, myself as a concept. Both need to be believed. Theoretically. And what did we break the word believe down to? We broke it down to the root end of that word, Eve, and to play off of what Santos Bonacci spoke to as Eve being I don't know if anagram is the right word, or acronistic of wave. We're talking about the water, right? The wave. Go with the flow. Go with the time. Go with the tide. Push and pull. Low tide, high tide. So be, leave, be lie, Eve. Be like Eve. Be like the wave. Be water. Go with it. In and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And if it's been out for a while, it's going to come in even bigger. Okay, depending on where you position yourself. But again, you are in the right position because you're able to see. You're able to see, S-E-A. From your lighthouse or from your crow's nest, 1818 on the clock, which is high above. So you have the vision. And sometimes the vision requires image, imagination, I magi. Sometimes the vision requires the magician, or the musician, or the mathematician. It's all saying the same thing. You're the magician, all right? What do we like to project, personify on to God? Being this magical butler, right? So again, another similarity. You both are magical. Yeah. But what we're learning in manifestation is when you don't get what you want right when and where, and you pout, well, that's an indication that you weren't being current. You weren't being present. You were only upholding this emotionally positive imprint for the sake of receiving something. And that's not how it works. How it works is you uphold your genuine emotional vibration, and then authentically it comes to us, right? But in order to do that, we have to almost, again, shrink everything down to just right the present moment, what's here and available to us. And that's being in the Garden of Eden, that's choosing heaven, choosing the Garden of Eden here and now. Anything else here, Spirit? Anything else here, Spirit? So in the human system, what is the discharge? Well, we have the lower component, that's the sexual, but then we have the higher component, and that is cerebral. In Kundalini Yoga, it's the awakening, it's the recycling of the cerebral spinal fluid up. It's when the snake becomes the eagle. Okay? That whole process of redirecting your sexual energy up to the heart space and up, pushing the cerebral spinal fluid, whether it's the same or not, whether it's just energy or whether it's the literal biophysiological system of the cerebral spinal fluid recycling up to the pineal gland, causing the opening of the lotus, the crown chakra, or the activation of it, the turning on of it. I see the wand here over this, what looks like a chalice, right? This circular object with the wand, with the club logo, right? Looks like one of those Catholic or Christian rounded chalices with a cross on it. And crucifixion means to magnetize by 1,000. And that's what happens when you recycle and push up. Through your deep breathing, you contract and restrict the muscles and push up the cerebral spinal fluid up into the pineal gland, where that sacred oil is crucified, magnified by 1,000 in the tomb. And then processed and pushed to the pineal gland to wake up, all that stuff. And that's what this crown is as well. It wears the crown. And I would imagine that that crown, you see the emperor wearing the crown, actually used to represent enlightenment to some extent. In some far off time long ago. Nothing like we understand it now. I mean, anything else for this water here? Anything else here, Spirit? I think I'll leave it there. It's another 25 minutes. And then we'll talk about the air. I think I have enough time on my phone storage.